right, I'm live, I'm live, I'm live. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is the first time I've used YouTube Live. Okay. I'm just going to get started. Hi, everybody. I am Stephannie Solomon, and thank you for jumping on. Thank you for jumping on. This is new to me, this whole live on YouTube. I've done it on other platforms, but this is exciting. This is exciting. As I am a podcaster and I've jumped in onto the YouTube community. I'm trying to grow it, and I understand doing these lives kind of help. So we're going to see what happens here. Okay, but I'm also a life coach, and I am just here to share my experiences, um, share a little bit of relatable coaching, aspirational coaching, just to help others become the best version of themselves. And today, I want to share how to protect your soul. Is our soul at risk? Our soul is at risk every day of being damaged, offended, beaten down, a whole lot of things. Our soul. Well, what is our soul? We're humans and we are made up of several components. We have this gorgeous body that the Lord has developed for us, put us in, and we have a soul and we have a spirit. Now, the soul, which I want to focus on, is what we have to take good care of and we often neglect. Like our body, we neglect it too, but we tend as humans to look on the outer side and we see the body here. We don't really see the soul, but we see effects of the soul, whether it's sick, needs healing, or what have you, right? So the soul is composed of our feelings, our emotional self, our hurtful things, memories, those types of things. And some people have asked, well, is that where my trauma lies? It can. It can. Our trauma can lie. Our traumas affect all aspects of us. Traumas affect the body. Traumas affect the uh, the mind, how we think. Traumas affect how our feelings, how we perceive life going forward. Where our triggers lie. That's where our soul is. Okay, so we want to deal with the soul today and how to take care of our soul so that it's not at risk of being permanently damaged. And by the way, the soul of a person is the very thing that the Lord is after. And for those of you who are Christians, you know that it is how we reign. Christians, you know that it is how we reign and live afterlife with the Lord by Him having ownership and possession of our soul. So when people say, oh, I gave ownership and possession of our soul. So when people say, oh, I gave my life to Christ, they gave Him the charge and ownership of their soul. It is the soul that Christ came to save, not the body, but the soul. So it is the soul that we have to protect, because the soul, where the emotions lie, the thoughts lies, the memories, and all those things, issues, burdens. I tell you, we're not taught how to do that. And so many people die never knowing how to take care of the soul. I am over 60. Lord willing, I'll be 66 this year. And I have just recently learned how to really do things to take care of my soul. See, the Lord is here to help us do things, but He teaches us how to do things also for ourselves. In other words, how to think. Let this mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. That helps the soul, because the mind is a part of the soul. Think on these. If there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Be ye transformed by the renewing of the mind. how we think. Meditation is really good. I like to meditate when I'm doing my yoga and exercises. Yeah, I hear the instructor and everything, but for me, when I'm meditating, I'm giving and saying affirmations that help remind me of who and whose I am. And those meditations for me are rooted in and related or regarded to the Word of God. They come from, they are the Word of God, because that's who I am. So my affirmations come from the Word of God. My soul needs to hear over and over again words that affirm and establish me, because the world around me doesn't do that. And the words of people and the words around us actually come to harm us and to kill us. That I grew up with hearing the saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words don't bother me. That is a barefaced lie. And I've coached many of people, talked to many of people. Words do bother. And as a former educator for 30 some years with young people and older people, but mostly younger people, words do matter and words do bother. Why else do bullies use words? Why else do bullies rely on the weaponry of name calling? Because words matter, and bullies are hoping that that'll be that jab that will stop you in your tracks and hurt you, harm you, what have you. Words matter. Yeah. So what I want to talk about is the energy of words. All right. The energy of words matter, whether the words are spoken or written. There's energy in how people say things. I don't care if it's your bestie. I don't care if it's your parent. I don't care if it's your sibling, your child, your colleague, your employer. I don't care, a stranger. I don't care who it is. And really, depending on where we are that day, what mood, and moods reside in the soul too. And if we allow them, and feelings reside in our soul, allow them to run before us, we're really headed for a train wreck. But if we are in a really funk and person says something to wound us any further with their words, that is extremely dangerous. So protecting our soul and feeding our soul really is of the utmost importance to all of us. That's soul care. And I just want to talk about several. Protecting our soul against the energy of words. Foremost, we need to know who we are. And we're not always who we say we are, because it is dangerous to sometimes believe our own press, whether we think too highly of ourselves or too lowly of ourselves. There has to be balance. We shouldn't be so low. Oh, I'm just a humble pie, humble me rather, and I'm not gonna fix myself up. I don't want anybody to think I'm too big. I've got a big head, and I'm too this and I'm too that. She thinks she cute. Growing up hearing that, I heard that a lot in the neighborhood. People would say that to individuals who fix themselves up. He think he's something. Well, shouldn't he? Shouldn't she? Who wants to go around thinking that, they're a bum? Who in their right mind? But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation on cultural, community type of warped thinking that starts in a family. But we need to look at the words that people project to us. And it starts in the home. I grew up in a community where, listening to people talk to their children and family as well. And as an educator, Oh my God, I heard some horrible, horrible things. Some people think that the harder you are on children, that makes them grow up to be strong. It may make them resistant to some things, but internally, not really. Calling, for instance, calling someone out of their name. You know, if we gave someone a legal name, John Doe or whatever, then call him John. If her name is Janet Doe, whatever, call her Janet. Even in anger, and you're calling someone the B word, you know, got that itch and calling them the B word, that's a no-no in my book. Because a child particularly will always remember that. I don't care how many times you say you're sorry, if you say you're sorry at all. You know, I've been angry with my daughter, but I never thought in my mind to call her outside of her name. Because to me that goes to even do that, to call your child or anybody outside of their name, you have already seen them as less than who they are to do that. That doesn't just happen. It doesn't. It does not flippantly happen to do that. So always be mindful of the energy of words, all right? The way that people frame words when they speak to us speaks volumes of who they are and who we're not, and who they may want us to be. Now, is the energy always negative? Absolutely not. But we need to learn how to protect our soul from that negative energy. Some people will call it a spirit. That's fine. The purpose is the same, either to harm us or help us. I have had people, perfect strangers, speak life over me, and the energy in their words I knew was to better me, to help me, to heal me. And we're never too old to be blessed, to be positively impacted from words that help and heal. And just like we have to protect our souls from the energy of negative words, we have to be careful that we're not spewing out ourselves words. Raise my hand, I've been guilty of that. And it doesn't feel right. If you are a person with morals, if you're a person who wants to do the right thing, may not always know the blueprint for what really is right. And I don't want to hear your truth, my truth, this truth, everybody got a truth. No, we all have a perspective. There's one truth, and that's the Lord. He is the truth. He's the very source of it. You know, when someone said, well, there are three sides to a story, there's different truths. Not really, and I don't think you would want anyone to say that in a court of law if someone harmed your child and your child was telling what exactly happened, but you said, oh, let's wait to hear what the perpetrator has to say. Let's wait to hear what this other person who's not for your child has to say. You want to know what really happened. The truth. And we can be on the side of truth, not our truth, what I think. No, what really happened. And if we don't know what happened, we don't know what happened. We're just giving our perspective. But the truth is not everybody's story, what really happened. All right? So the energy of what people say to us has to be sifted. And sometimes, I believe more than sometimes, I believe most of us, we know with the absorption of that word or sentence or phrase that someone said to us, we know the intent behind it. Even with a smile. Even with a smile, we know the intent behind it, but we deny it. We deny it and denounce it for various reasons. Oh, it's just me. It has to be me because this person everybody likes. And I'm the only one who feels something up with him. Something's up with her. Something's up with them. Something's up with this. Nobody else is acting like they sense anything. Are they clueless? Since I'm the only one, you ever hear, and I've heard someone say this to me, everybody can't be wrong. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. And so many people let themselves sink into the notion that, well, it's them against me. No one will believe me. I'm alone in what I have to say. That's the popular opinion. The majority is saying the opposite, which is not the truth. No one's going to believe me. And so there are a lot of people who not really rest, but they are silent. And they suffer in silence because they're dealing with that truth and fear, or of coming out with it, or what have you, and the fear of the majority who oppose the truth. But don't deny what you feel. Don't shrink in that, because your soul has to live with 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Your soul has to live with all that you know and that you've taken in. I'm not saying you got to go out and with a bullhorn tell the world how you feel. You don't have to write a tell-all book, because some people are waiting for you to do that, right? Because you hold the secrets, But you don't have to do that. You don't. You don't. You can free yourself by knowing who and whose you are. And I'm a witness that, if it comes to sharing with people, which we have to be very careful about, and I share that with a lot of my clients, we have to be very careful, because just because a person has a listening ear doesn't necessarily, and a kind heart, doesn't mean they have the capacity for the things we have to dump on them. And so I believe that we need to know who and whose we are, and that's a becoming. That doesn't happen instantly. That is something that we become. We become this person over time. So be careful how and where you share. But getting back to that energy reception, we have receptors, and we know. Sometimes we call it intuition, or I got a hunch, something ain't right, discernment. You and I, we're born with those things, but we deny it. And oftentimes we're sidetracked, whether it's on our cell phone, whether we're in a conversation with someone, or we're consumed in work or whatever. And the flags were up, and I know they were red flags for various things that have happened in my life, for troubles that I had eventually down the road because I ignored the red flags, because I denounced the red flags. No, that's me. He didn't mean that. She didn't mean that. They didn't mean that. I paid the price for it. Many of us do. All right? So receive rather the energy from the words, how they're framed to us. And learn how to protect your soul when you know that this person, or that person rather, has the tendency, sometimes it's cynicism, sarcasm, mockery. They just constantly are saying things to demean, demoralize, force you to shrink and reduce yourself. Learn to protect yourself from that person. And I often get this one, well, how can I do that, Stephannie, when I'm in a space with that person? I work with this person side by side. That person's my partner. I partnered with the person in business who doesn't want to see me bloom and blossom and glow. I live with the person. That person is my family member. I'm a witness. The Lord will show you how. The Lord will show you how. There is no one strategy that fits everyone's situation, but the Lord will show you how. And sometimes He will fix it completely for you, so that you can grow and you can bloom. So don't denounce, because the energy of words when they are negative are red flags, and when we deny them, we will suffer later. And I know there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time to set someone straight in the moment, and maybe later You know, sometimes in a crowd, sometimes alone, and sometimes not to say anything. You just have to be wise enough to know what to do and when to do it. Everything isn't about confronting. Everything really isn't. Because our behavior deals with confronting, really. Everything is not verbally confronting. Well, I need to let him know. I need to let her know. Oh, we're going to turn this place out. Give me a break. That's your intellect. That's the level of your intellect of being, going there, And I get it. We get in our feelings about it. We can get angry. We can get depressed. We can go in depression really is anger. And we can get really hurt by what has been said. But those things have to be dealt with because that's an attack on our soul. So learn to recognize the energy. That's protection. Don't deny what you felt. Don't deny it. Don't spend too much time on what he said and she said. I heard it, they said it. Now, how do I handle myself going forward? Do I put myself in certain spaces when I don't have to? We don't have to do everything, even if customs say so. And I know that this is difficult too for people who have traditions, whether it be in the family, in the community, in an organization. They're traditions. And those traditions are robbing people of joy, peace, and happiness. Again, I always say at some point, you're as grown as you're going to be at a certain age. And there are certain decisions you have to make and be strong enough to make that you can live with them and not renege on it and not have regrets over it. And as adults, and especially if we have children, we are teaching also our children what to take. It's abuse. We're teaching our children, and we've taught ourselves, whether we want to hear it or not, that it's okay to take abuse and to take abuse from certain people, to take abuse from parents, to take abuse from siblings, to take abuse from peers, classmates, where, other family members, Uncle Joe, Aunt Susie, Nanny, Poppy, We're teaching people to take, oh, you know how he is. Yeah, I know how he is. That doesn't make it right. Him being a jerk, she being manipulative and a bully, doesn't mean I'm supposed to take that? But what about how I am? We teach people in what we say and don't say that they are to be abused. And I am here to say we were not created to be abusers or to be abused. And particularly people of faith, we are not created to be anyone's doormat. Please do not allow scriptures like turn the other cheek, give the other one. To mean that you are to be in abusive situations. Nope. We have to come to understand what those scriptures really mean. That's for another time. But we are not created to be abused or to be abusers. Not at all. And abuse is not always physical. There's financial abuse, there's, psychological abuse, and there is emotional abuse, and there can be abuse on the job, could be abuse in a family. Yeah, it runs the gamut. As a family dynamics, that's what we talk about. We get into it. So I just want to say, protect your soul. Protect your soul when you realize that certain people have the potential, their behavior, their patterns of behavior, their history has shown you do not have their best interests. And please do not believe the lie that it was just a joke. I used to tell my students, I was just teasing. No, teasing is really a manipulative way to say what you really feel. We choose who we tease very carefully. It's also a way of putting people in check. So if I tease you about that, I'm letting you know something's wrong with you and I don't like it. Oh, teasing is very manipulative. Let's, go there. Energy and words, folks, it comes in different forms. And whether someone frames it as a joke or frames it as teasing, I believe, you can measure jokes. You really can. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but you can measure when a joke is for simply fun. But when it becomes continual or the energy from it is visceral, no, there's something to this. And sometimes it's to provoke us, to get us out of character. People get off on that. I used to tell my kids all the time, the bullies do that to get you off, set you off. And if they know that sets you off, that it's made their day. So watch the energy, learn a plan of how you're going to protect your soul. If you need this job, you need this whatever for a while, learn ways to protect your soul, folks. Learn ways. And I understand too, this ways may work at one point in life, and then you enter another season, another chapter of life. And so you have to develop another plan, for things. So, as we are living, we are evolving. And so we have to, and we're becoming this better version of us all, hopefully all of the time. So we have to find new ways. We're in another space, another place. And so we have to find a new way to protect our soul. Speaking of spaces and another place, it's another thing. Watch where you put yourself. Oftentimes we put ourselves in rooms and spaces with individuals who just don't have our best interest. And they will do and say things that will infect our soul. And so we have to be careful of where we go, where we place ourselves. And I get it. I've been there more than once, especially when it comes to job hunting. Looking at what the best jobs are, for instance, the best companies to work for, the best organizations. And we want to be a part of these organizations, but the culture or the climate of these organizations may not be the best fit for us. And again, we know what the best fit means. A best fit includes, is my soul prospering here? Not just am I growing professionally, not just am I growing intellectually, but is my soul comfortable here? Relationships. Oh, she's for me. He's for me. Oh, we're great friends. Let's go on trips together. And people get you in certain spaces, especially around like-minded people like them, and set you up because they never had your best interest. So we have to learn to be judgmental. Oh, you didn't say that. The Bible says we ain't supposed to judge. Only God is the judge. Oh, it's funny how people who don't know word know that. Well, let's go there. Because as we know, those of us who've had some schooling, we know that there are words called multiple meaning words. And multiple meaning words are words that have dual or triple meanings. Judging can mean condemn. We're not to condemn anybody. That's not our place. Only God has the authority to condemn a soul. Yeah, well, people been put in prison but the soul of a man or woman, only God condemns the soul. That's judgment, is what we're told not to do. Also in the Bible, the word judge is used in context with observation, assessing, evaluation. Judge ye all things righteously. Check out what's happening. Check out the energy of the words. Check out the actions of a person. Do they line up? What am I seeing the majority of the time? What am I sensing when this person is in my space? Yes, judge. Judge all things righteously. Don't condemn. Check it out. Observe. Evaluate. This person doesn't have my best interests. They don't. Watch where you place yourself. And oftentimes, we do bring a lot of soul issues on ourselves. The Bible says the heart holds the issues of life. Some we're born into. We had nothing to do with, with what those who lived before us decided to do. Born into poverty, born into sin, that's definitely, we had nothing to do with that. But as we live, God gives us certain levels of control, things to take dominion over, and we make wrong choices. We do, because we're human. We make poor decisions. And some of those poor decisions lie in putting ourselves in spaces and rooms where we are just not valued. And we still stay there for whatever reason, hoping that, they'll get me, they'll like me, they'll butter up to me, they'll see that I'm really not this, that, or the other. Shrinking ourselves down, not acknowledging our worth, our royalty. Oh yeah, we are a part of a royal nation, so that the majority, or people who think themselves more highly than they are, can see us differently. They never will. And that's not our job to change their mind. Our job is to have our mind changed. So watch where you choose to place yourself, and watch who and what you give value to. Well, Stephannie, if I'm always protecting and always on guard, because the Lord does say to guard your heart. Okay, the issues of the heart, that's part of my soul. Guard it. Guard it. I've learned to be on guard all the time, like keeping your head on a swivel, so to speak. That can weigh on you too. Because when do you chill? And when do you relax, rest in peace, hope, and joy? And how do you even do that? I've learned that how I feed my soul has a lot to do with dealing with the anxiety that can come about of keeping my head on a swivel. I can't live like that every day. I can't. It'll show up in the execution of what I'm supposed to do. It'll show up in my mothering. It'll show up in anything. It'll show up in any assignment that I'm given. And it's a terrible thing for it to show up and now have a negative impact, especially on another person. Well, you have to go and now correct that. I am not that parent that knows that I've wounded my child, and because I'm a parent, I think I don't need to say I'm sorry. I learned that is not cool. I made a choice before I even became a mother. That would not be the kind of mother that I would be. I would acknowledge. I would, at age-appropriate times, share things, especially when asked, that I did that were wrong, and how I went about trying to make things better and right. And even as an educator, I had to learn to do that. Trust me. There are students who will tell you that I apologize to them. I've apologized to an entire class. It's not their, I can remember going through a very, very difficult time. I'll share it. It was during my divorce. And I mean, I was coming to work late. I mean, all kind of things. Didn't have enough sleep, not finding excuses, but admitting and acknowledging that I spoke harshly, sometimes to students. And I know some of y'all say, but y'all know some of, I trust me. I taught 30 some years, and I know about the ones that are wanksters and angsters. I know the wannabes and the real. I know about the ones that are very, I trust me. I've had my share of confrontations. Another show. But also, I'm talking about me when I was in the wrong, you know, and I've had to apologize to children personally, and I've had to apologize to a class. I can apologize to my peers, you know. Wrong is wrong, you know. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, you know. And just because we're all going through something, everybody's struggling through something. Everybody. So to say, well, everybody's going through something. And we are not excused and exempted to act ugly because we're going through something. I thank God that's not biblical as I choose to live biblically. I just thank God it's not. And I think it's not a crime or, you know, it's not a law. Well, they were going through something, so accept it. Please don't be that person and don't be that parent, all right? But feed yourself. Feed yourself with the word of God. Feed yourself with affirmations that are not lofty and unattainable, but realistic. You know, so you may be saying, well, I don't want to use scripture. I'm not a Bible believer. Well, do you believe in positive words and affirmations to build your self-esteem, to build you up? You know, I can and I will. You know, I am able to do this. I can do this. You know, I have a great mind. They don't have to be long sentences and paragraphs. Stop looking at where you come from, if it's not the ideal you think, and equate that with I'm not. I am. You know, I remember growing up, especially when I went to college, and I would meet, you know, new classmates, and you know, get into conversations, and what ultimately would come out is, where you from? You know, and so learning, oh, you're from Jersey, all right, you from Connecticut, or you from Virginia, where I'm from here, Baltimore. Really? You don't sound like it. So people will judge you, or you don't look like it. Or I would hear this one, you look like you're a single child. How do you look like you're an only child? An only child would hear that one. When I became a teacher, you don't look like a teacher. What does a teacher look like? What do I have to do to make you and thousands of others who I've encountered and will encounter be convinced that, oh, she's a teacher by the way she looks? Oh, here's another one. And some of you do know this. I was a pastor's wife for 25 years. You don't look like you could be a minister's wife. What does that person look like? I tell you, I'd be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs if I was what everyone had in their mind, what a pastor's wife, a teacher, a Baltimorean looked like. You know, folks, feed yourself with affirmations that empower you, so that even when someone else has an opinion of you that is so different from who you know you are and who you aspire to become, you can bypass all of that. Position yourself. If you're going to put yourself in certain spaces, like I talked about earlier, in certain rooms, position yourself to be around people who speak a language of self-development, personal development, not so much positive thinking, but thinking, critical thinking. I'm big on that. Critical thinking. Thinking that really is about building a better self and others. Be around people who are service driven. This is how you feed your soul. Because when you're around people who model and talk about service, they're out doing ministry, doing it, not talking about it only, but doing it. You see it and you model that. It takes away and diminishes, it starts to tear down the years of memories and emotional fracturing that has been established in the soul, because you're seeing, oh wow, there's a whole new world out here, and I fit in. I'm not what they say I am. I'm becoming. There's a part of me I didn't know existed. You start to explore and see yourself differently in a better way. You're and I've heard this word, you can be an anomaly, and that is okay. It is okay to be that deviant. The one that's different in the group. You have a litter of puppies and you got the little mutt. That's all right. You're different. You're smaller than the rest. It doesn't mean that you're worse. They're larger. It doesn't mean that they're better because they're larger. And it doesn't mean that you're worse because you're smaller. Stop listening to how society tries to impose things on you to reduce you. Energy of words. But learn to feed your soul by putting yourself in spaces where people are service driven. I tell you, that will really do wonders. When I joined my church and became a disciple of Christ, I really sat under a lot of Bible study, intense Bible study, discipleship study, and that's an ongoing thing. I'm not impressed with people who tell me they go to church. My thing is, how do you live out the word? Because that's an ongoing thing. It's a lifestyle. It's not, and I know people, I've been raised in a church, I go to church, but how are you living? As one of the mothers in my church would say, how you living? How you living? We're living out this word every day, even when we mess up. Yes, people who love God mess up, and mess up big time. But how do you live in the mess ups? All right. So watch how you feed yourself. Feed yourself. Be around people who you sense that through their living you've watched. Don't be too quick. Slow to speak, quick to listen, and to watch. Watch as well as pray. Observe all things. Watch, be vigilant. Watch. Even in the church, watch. And don't allow, I have to say this because I get this all the time, frequently rather, as a life coach, I have church hurt. There's church hurt, there's family hurt, there's work hurt, there's all kind of hurt. But don't let the church hurt be an excuse to package everybody into this idea, this perspective that you have of people who go to church, all right, and do all that. That's also another show. But feed yourself, okay, through inspirational readings. There are tons of books out here that you can read by qualified, notable people who have proven through their lifestyle. You can read up on people. There's no excuse these days. The internet isn't all bad. You can research people and look at their history, and see what they are about, and say that may be an author whose work I would like to read. pour into your spirit readings, songs, um, videos. They're great videos to watch of inspirational things. Be in groups. Put yourself in different spaces. Don't always go to the same places and spaces. Don't be afraid to go by yourself. You can be safe in certain places. You can learn to be safe. You don't always have to have people to go with you, because I've learned this. Everybody's not on the same journey, first of all, and everybody's not available. And some people just not there with you in the evolutional process. And if you wait for your bestie, your sister, your brother, whoever, who normally does everything with you, that's not always their thing. And you can't blame them for that. And you cannot deny yourself your growth because someone isn't ready to walk with you. So I've shared this with people. Don't be afraid to enter into certain spaces by yourself. Don't always, I can handle myself alone. I can be alone and I can be cool. And I can go somewhere too and not have anyone go with me. I can meet someone there. I'm fine. I'm not going to be in the house 7 days a week and doing I'm going to find something to do, and I am going to get out as well. But where do I choose to go? Where do I choose to park my soul? And listen to the conversations in this room, because that's another thing. You're in this space, the conversations in the room impact our soul. You got to know also when to leave. I almost got in trouble with I'll just let that alone. Because I left the room when everyone else was just spewing, and I just left the room. I'm not taking this. I'm not absorbing any more of this, especially when you already know you're dealing with a lot, So watch I call them soul feeders. Watch who are your soul feeders, and you don't have to have a lot of them. Soul feeders and service, I have found to be a great way to take care of your soul. I'll share this really quickly. I was going through a very, very difficult time emotionally. And I remember it was, and I can use her name, Reverend Dr. Cecilia Bryant asked me to be a part of a mission trip to Jamaica. And I went alone. This was years ago. I went alone. Most memorable, impactful time of my life. Now, I was serving on that mission trip, and I had experienced serving before then, so it wasn't like I didn't know how to serve. Being a part of prison ministry, street witnessing, and different things, I was serving, but that mission trip to Jamaica opened my eyes. Because sometimes when we are down in our feelings and life is going really, really not according to plan, our soul is infected. And this is where service starts to bring things into perspective. I saw children and families in conditions that I couldn't imagine myself or my child or people I love in couldn't. And we all took different sectors to serve in, and I was assigned the orphanage. And I tell you, best memories of my life. Sitting with those young children, having them not even know me, I'm a stranger, sit on my lap, and it took everything to hold back my tears. I didn't want to cry and make them feel like they were something to be pitied, But that was about 20 years ago. And what that did is strengthen me to serve harder. And so even though things did not change the way I wanted them to, and I endured, I really went through years of having these monkeys on my back, because there were several things I was dealing with, years of monkeys on my back. The Holy Spirit kept moving me to service, and to serve in various ways. and capacities. It didn't make the problems or struggles go away, but it made dealing with them better, because I had to learn from those struggles so that I could be here today to say what I'm saying with conviction and authority and truth. And so I say to you, protect your soul, because we need you. If you don't protect your soul, you become toxic, and the true you we never get to see. And the world needs you. We need you. We need you who has yet to become. We want to see that version because the world needs you. And that won't happen if you don't protect your soul and if you don't feed it correctly. All right, there's so much to say about this topic, but I'm going to let it be, let it rest right there. Let it rest right there. So find ways to protect your soul. You know, there are other ways other than what I mentioned today. Find ways to feed your soul positively, you know, because you can feed your soul negatively. Like we feed our body healthy things and we feed our body unhealthy things. You can feed your soul healthy and unhealthy things. I hope that you're intentional, you're very deliberate about feeding your soul what's healthy, which will grow you into the person God saw before any of us. Now, how do I turn off this live? I need to put my glasses on to do that, right? Okay, here we go. How does this work? All right, there we go. All right, folks, have a great one. Feed your soul. Take care.